This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. It's Tuesday today, and that means we're doing a top 5 list. And recently, if you've been watching these videos, you will know that I've been talking about my favourite albums from the 70s from different genres of rock. Just to reiterate, I kind of had this idea for this series of videos because I watched the TV panel show, interview, talk show kind of thing, where the idea, it was about music, and the idea was put forth that no other decade in the history of rock music has been as fertile and as productive for different genres of rock. You know, in the 70s, you got hard rock, you got heavy rock, you got metal, you got blues rock, you got progressive rock, you got punk rock, you got new wave of British heavy metal, you had country rock, folk rock, loads of different genres of rock kind of came out in the 70s, and I'm at the moment on a little bit of a mission to pick my favourite 5 albums from each one of those different styles of rock music. And this week I want to talk about a particular type of rock album that really did have its heyday in the 70s. Something that you don't really see much or hear much of these days, and I think that's a shame. I am talking about the live rock album. So coming up today is a rundown of my favourite, not the most important or the most influential or the most important in any stretch of the imagination, just my favourite 5 live rock albums from the 70s, starting with
Frampton Comes Alive.
Yes, 1976's Frampton Comes Alive by, of course, Peter Frampton. It's just a tour de force, isn't it? And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say, because the man himself has said it in an interview a few years ago, or a couple of years ago with Rick Beato, that it was the album which basically rescued his career. You know, he was kind of on final notice from the record label that if this album didn't do well, then, well, you know, you might have to go back to your day job, sonny. And, you know, so they recorded one of the shows. I think, was it the Winterland show? I'm not sure. But anyway, they recorded one of his shows, and you know they were kind of mixing it. And one of the record company top brass came in and was absolutely blown away by like what he was hearing coming out the studio monitors. And gets to the end of the mix of the album and said, right, well, where's the rest of it? Well, you only gave us the budget to record one show, and these are the best tracks from that. It says, okay, out came the checkbook, and right, go and get that Rolling Stones mobile truck and go and record some more shows, because this album is going to be important, and it was. It's an absolute belter of an album. Like all live albums, and another one that I'm going to talk about, is it next on the list? No, it's a couple down the list. There is debate about how live it actually is, because inevitably, some retouching went on in the studio. I think the main thing was that the mic on the kick drum got moved, and it had to be either, you know, the drummer had to kind of redo some of his kick drum parts, in the studio later, but that doesn't detract from the fact that it is and remains and always will be, I think, one of the best live rock albums ever. Peter's playing on this is just, he's really at the top of his game, and, you know, he's having fun, and golly, does it show. It's a fantastic album, and it had to be on this list. Next.
At Fillmore East.
Yeah, the Allman Brothers, live at Fillmore East. Now, I'm aware that this album has already had a place on one of these lists when I was talking about my favourite blues rock albums. But you know what? Think of this like the Oscars. The same picture can win multiple awards. It's just one of the best live albums. I think it's a rock album. Some people would dispute that it's more blues than rock, but, you know, I think it's... You know, well, I've heard tracks played from it on Planet Rock on the radio, so there you go. It's officially rock. I mean, just Duane Allman's playing on this, and Dickie Betts as well. Just the pair of them. I mean, Statesboro Blues, Stormy Monday. In Memory of Elizabeth Reed, Hot Lanta, I mean, there's just not a bad track on this album. Do you remember when we went from vinyl to CDs back in the late 80s, early 90s, and suddenly you didn't have to get up and lift the needle and move it to the next track if there was one you wanted to skip. And then it became very easy to skip tracks with CDs. Even easier now, isn't it, with kind of streaming and MP3s. You can just skip. This is an album that you never want to do that on. I'm told there is footage of this concert, or these, was it 1 or 2 nights they recorded? But anyway, there is footage of this live album, but I've never seen it, and I don't want to, because I've got my own. Every time I listen to this album, I watch the concert up here, and I doubt anything that is actually there on 35mm film or whatever is ever going to match up to the gig that I kind of watch up here. Fantastic album, one of the best, had to be on the list. Next.
Live and Dangerous.
Yes, Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous. Now, I think, was it Tony Visconti who was the producer? Was he the producer on this? I think so. I think he said that, up to 75% of it is retouched in the studio, but that has been vehemently denied by, I think Scott Gorham was quite scathing about that remark, and so was Brian Robertson. And, well, I guess they were there on the night, weren't they? So you got to give them some credence. The thing is, yes, we know that Southbound wasn't a performance recorded at one of the gigs. It was, just a tune that was done at a sound check, and then they dubbed audience noise onto it because it happened to be the best version that they'd captured of the song, but it sounded a bit empty without the sort of crowd noise on there, so they put it on. Is that faking it? I don't think so. They were still playing live. And, maybe the odd kind of backing vocal was retouched, and maybe the odd kind of flubbered final note of a guitar solo or something like that. But, I don't know. I wasn't there, but it just feels like a live album. You know what I mean when I say it feels like it sounds live? For instance, bless him, Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, but the was it the Live Alive album that he did? It just, to me, that was kind of apparent. I wouldn't say obvious, but it was apparent that album had a lot of post-production and retouching done on it because Stevie wasn't in a good place at the time, and he needed to redo quite a few of his parts, I'm told. Forgive me if I'm wrong, argue with me in the comments about it if you want, but to me, it just didn't, that album, which has been retouched. It doesn't significantly more, I suspect. Live and Dangerous just feels like a live album. You can almost feel the buzz of adrenaline from the band enjoying themselves on stage. It's a great album. It's essentially a Thin Lizzy greatest hits album performed in front of an audience. And I would also actually say the second live album that they did, which was from the early 80s, I think it was the final tour, the Thunder and Lightning tour, called Life. That's a great live album as well, because all of the old guys like Gary Moore and I think Eric Bell and whoever, and Snowy White and all, basically because they knew it was the last tour, that there was a bit of a reunion thing going on. Great version of Black Rose on that album, but that's not the one we're talking about today. It's Live and Dangerous, classic 70s live rock album. It had to be on the list. Next.
Live in the Air Age.
Yes, this I suspect is one that has flown under many people's radars. Bebop Deluxe, Live in the Air Age. Again, it's like what I was saying about Thin Lizzy and Live and Dangerous. If you want all of their best tunes all in one place and the definitive performances of them, then this is the album that you need. I think it was last year there was like a deluxe box set came out that, I've got it on Spotify, which is like hours and hours and hours, pretty much. I think they must have recorded the entire tour, and I've waded through that a few times, well, a couple of times at least, but it's how many times you need to listen to the same song in front of a different audience. So if you're looking for a way in to Bebop Deluxe, if they're a band that you're not that familiar with, maybe you know the name, but you're not really, they've, like a lot of bands do, you're kind of aware of them, but they sort of fly under your radar a little bit, then this Live in the Air Age is, a good way, and I think there's a fantastic, I nearly said something else then, there's a fantastic version of a tune called Adventures in a Yorkshire Landscape. If you want to know why Bill Nelson, like the main songwriter, frontman, guitar player, etc. of Bebop Deluxe, if you want to know why he is regarded with such reverence, and amongst those who know, then go and check out his guitar playing on that tune. It's jaw-droppingly good. It's got soul, it's got passion, it's got shred. He was shredding in the 70s, and what a tone he gets. And the band are as tight as a tight thing on a tight day in a tight town. Just super well rehearsed, really at the top of the game. Fantastic songs. Best versions of these fantastic songs live on that album. So if you're new to Bebop Deluxe, go and check out Live in the Air Age. Next.
Strangers in the Night.
Yeah, from the end of the decade, 79, Strangers in the Night by UFO. I think possibly one of Michael Schenker's best performances, certainly one of the best albums he's played on. I think, dare I say it, I know there's going to be some Michael Schenker fans watching, I think Michael Schenker's time in UFO was probably the best stuff he's ever done, and the best stuff he did in UFO, I think, was probably this album, Strangers in the Night. I mean, Doctor, Love to Love, Only You Can Rock Me, Lights Out, Rock Bottom, again, this is the great thing about live albums. You get all the crowd pleasers because that's what they're doing. They're pleasing the crowd. They're not kind of playing the obscure B-side that was written by the bass player, that kind of stuff that was only included on the album for, let's say, band politics reasons. They're playing the stuff that they know the audience want to hear. And UFO were one of those bands that had, are they still going? A mate of mine saw them a few years ago. They had Vinnie Moore on guitar at the time. But I think Phil Mogg is one of the great rock vocalists, that he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. He's got some grunt and some power in his voice, but very kind of sweet and melodic with it as well. And it's just a great, great live late 70s rock album, and Doctor, the live version of Doctor, actually came out as a single and did pretty well in the charts, I seem to remember, in 79, and it's just every band I was ever in at one point, in a practice room, you'd start jamming a version of that song out, and sometimes it ends up in the set. It depends largely whether the singer could carry off the Phil Mogg vocal or not. But yeah, that is Strangers in the Night by UFO, right from the end of the 70s, 79. As I said at the start of the video, these are not, by any stretch of the imagination, the most important, the most influential, the most, kind of iconic live albums of the 70s. They just happen to be my favourites, and I'd be interested to know what you think of them, if you think of any that I should have included but didn't, because it has been a long list that I've had to whittle down to 5. But let me know what your thoughts on this are in the comments. Always interested to read what your take on this is. But that is pretty much the video for today, folks. Hope you've enjoyed my ramblings and musings on the subject of 70s live rock albums, and if you have, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so. And why not drop me a like while you're at it? Don't forget, as always, the live stream every Friday 5 p.m. UK time, where we drink beer and talk about music and guitars and many other things too. What a great way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Look after yourselves, folks. Stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.